Welcome to another edition of A Conversation With, where Charles and I have been navigating the franchise community by bringing leaders into the conversation. Today we are joined by Laura and Jessica from Snapology. Thank you for joining us. Would love for you guys to give an opening statement on how you're navigating this storm, what's happening from a business, franchise, and personal standpoint. Laura, I'm going to let you take the lead on this, and then Jessica, we'll go to you.
Sure. Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of months for sure with the pandemic here. Snapology, as you know, is primarily an in-person business where we're trying to get children together, interacting, problem solving, and those types of things. And so our business was in quite jeopardy when schools closed and when the stay-at-home orders started to take place. So I'm really proud of the leadership team that we have here at Snapology. We were very proactive really early on. We're able to take a look at our portfolio of curriculum and identify some programs that we could do online. We were very careful though, because we really didn't want to change the crux of who we were. So we knew we wanted to serve our communities in the way that we've served them for years, but we didn't want to sort of change our identity. So we very quickly were able to adapt and have some great free programs for folks to help the communities and help the parents and the families out during this difficult time. And then we also, of course, wanted to be able to provide for our franchisees to really be able to bring some more revenue back into their businesses. So that it wasn't, zero for several months. We were very effectively able to do that. I won't lie, it's nothing compared to the volume of business that we've done in the, in the historical past, but it has been able to bring some revenue in. So again, I'm pretty proud of our team for pivoting so quickly and putting these programs in place. And honestly, really proud of all of our franchisees like Jessica, who, in the beginning, there was a little bit of a panic, I think, for every business owner. But I'm really proud of the way our franchisees sort of turned everything around and embraced the programs. And we're seeing some fantastic results. So that's kind of where we are. We're still continuing to develop tools and develop programs for our franchisees during this time. But, I'm pretty, I think we've made the best that we can out of this, sort of bad situation.
Appreciate that. And Jessica, same question over to you.
So I really think Laura hit it on the head in regards to being able to mitigate the risk by transitioning virtual. Of course, things are out of our control right now in this crazy time that we're in, but having a business, specifically a franchise, that allows you that sense of community, those resources, having access to Laura, that has been super invaluable. And these past couple months have just been really a creative process. So my location in Manhattan, New York City, and Long Island City, we've transitioned completely virtual, like most other owners. We're hosting virtual birthday parties, virtual play dates. We hosted a virtual spring break camp where we even had a 30-minute virtual cafeteria where the children were able just to socialize and be with each other. So really we've been creative. And of course, we've all taken a hit financially, but we're growing in other ways. Our email list, our marketing presence, our social media presence. So although it's been challenging, it's been rewarding in the sense how we've been able to mitigate the risk and how we've been able to kind of stay afloat with the help of headquarters.
One of the great things about all these conversations have been the symmetry between franchisor and franchisee. And what we're learning is there's so many brands that'll talk about pivoting and making changes during COVID. But what I find compelling about the really good brands and the good leadership teams, really this pivot, it's not a pivot. You're leaning into all the things you've put in place before COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So setting aside buzz terms, right, of pivoting, I know Snapology was one of the leaders in terms of I know, Laura, you guys have developed a very rich and deep curriculum. And all of a sudden now, if you expose that curriculum online and it's not deep and thorough and really something of value, the whole system gets exposed. So, I mean, how do you feel about how the curriculum, how your systems have held up, and really how you're leveraging it right now as you adapt?
Yeah, I mean, that's really an important point. We have over 80 different topics and programs that we do, and that translates to actually 1,500 hours of curriculum that we have sort of in our quiver. And so, for online programs, every program we do isn't going to work in an online platform. I mean, we're all about kids getting together and doing, robotics, and sometimes that's very complex, and there's, robot boards and lots of materials. And so, there's a large segment of the programming that we have that just simply wasn't available for online programming. But because we had such a wide breadth and depth of programming, we were pretty quickly able to pull out about 60 or 70 hours of curriculum that you could do from somebody's home. And then now that we've had a couple months of planning, we're starting to figure out how we might be able to do some things like the robotics and engineering in distributing kits. But it really was that bench strength that we had, and having 1,500 hours of curriculum to find these activities that we could do with children from their own homes, where they could be using either Lego bricks or recycled materials, and still get the full academic enrichment, social development, and of course fun that we've always been trying to deliver.
Jessica, one of the things that you said when you were giving your opening statement is you talked about the good, and then you slide over to, yeah, of course we're down financially, but it seems like that turns into a secondary thing. Maybe talk about how does your mindset get to the place of let's go win and then worry about the financial side later as a franchise owner?
Sure. So one of the personal reasons why I purchased a franchise is the level of control. And I think we're all feeling it right now. We have a lack of control of a lot of our health, of our business standing, of whether or not we're able to see our loved ones. And having a business, specifically a franchise, again, that gives you the resources, that gives you that sense of community, gives you a sense of control, which is really fulfilling, and it gives you peace, which is something that we all need right now. You can get as creative as you want and make business decisions that affect you, your family, and your immediate business directly. So sure, we're all taking a financial hit, but we're gaining in other ways. We're gaining in intangible ways. The reliability of self is huge. The peace, again, there are a lot of people who are waiting to be furloughed if they haven't been furloughed already. They're sitting in limbo. They've taken a pay cut. And this allows you to really control what's happening right now, as well as the future.
Jessica, I mean, what's always compelling to me, and until we started having these conversations with franchisor and franchisee, the really good franchise systems have amazing franchisees. It's not 100%, but Nick made a great point, which great franchisees make great franchise systems, and I love that you're focused on resources, community control. Jessica, for someone who, whether it's Snapology or any other franchise business, right? When you were going through the process, when you were making that decision, do I go with Snapology? Do I go with another brand? Do I go independent? What were the intangibles that led you to Snapology, made you feel like it was the right decision? And how do you validate that now as you look backwards?
Sure. So I like to think that I'm pretty self-sufficient and I could have made a lot of businesses successful, or at least I like to think so. But what really sold me was Laura and her team. The fact that Laura was a franchisee in the past, I mean, everything was just so polished. It was so human. They weren't just trying to sell me. They were really trying to build a relationship. And the product speaks for itself. I come from a sales background, but also an education background. And in reviewing the materials, it really just made sense to me. And I know that I'm, providing a service that the community needs. It's a quality service. And going back to that fulfillment and that level of control, that's something that you can't put a price on. One of the things that concerned me about purchasing a business is I kind of felt like I was cheating a little bit because it wasn't my idea. But really, you're purchasing a success model. You're purchasing, that community. All of that is valuable. So it's not cheating at all. It's helping you reach your goals faster, and reaching that sense of fulfillment, peace, and control that I think a lot of us right now specifically are aiming for.
Laura, obviously there's plenty of moments throughout the history of you being the franchisor that you feel proud, whether that's selling your first franchise, whether that's growing the business, whether that's consumers giving rave reviews on how you've changed your lives. But as you get to this point and you're seeing a sense of community come from your franchise organization, does this take it to a new level of proud? Is this something that, obviously the silver lining out of an awful scenario is maybe there's tighter communities out of this? What is your sense of pride now as it relates back to your brand?
Yeah, it's interesting because we've always had, we've tried to create an environment that was pretty open for franchisees to help other franchisees. We've always provided the support as the franchisor, but I think in a franchise system, sometimes franchisees listen more to other franchisees than they kind of want to listen to the franchisor sometimes. And what's really been great for me is to see, particularly during this time, how franchisees have helped each other. Some of it's truly just emotional. It has really nothing to do with the business itself. It's just sort of we're all in this together and sharing, sort of their stress and sharing, their ideas and things. And our owners are fantastic. I mean, they get on the phone with each other. We've got a couple of like forums and systems where they communicate with each other. And they've always, kind of used it in the past, but the level of use of those types of things is just through the roof now. And it's really, as Jessica kind of said, it's really actually making the franchise owners more self-sufficient, but also it's bringing the franchise as a whole and the franchisees together as a bigger, family really, and as a more close-knit family unit. And so that's really kind of cool to see from my perspective as the franchisor. I always kind of hope those types of things will happen, but it's nice to see that actually playing out.
As we've had, I don't know, maybe 40 of these conversations. And again, our pool is biased because they're quality brands. But, where you are at now, and I love Jessica's point. She used the word human, right, as one of the reasons why the connection and she purchased. I also love the fact that your franchisees, Jessica, by her own right, could go run a Fortune 500 company, in my opinion, after 5 minutes, right? I certainly know Laura could, right? So, but I love the combination together. But what's not lost, and I guess we can't articulate in this video is everything underlying the Snapology system. So if over all the years, if you're just taking profits, not building out curriculum, not building out advisory boards, not building out digital technology, not building out email systems, then all of a sudden, all this empowerment, no matter how good your feelings are and sentiment is in times of crisis, everything craters, no? So Laura, I mean, just a little, what are some of the things that you look back on now where you're really glad you have it and to lean in on it at this point?
Yeah, there's a couple things, and timing is amazing for some of the things that we had actually put in place earlier in the year, actually late last year, that are now going to be really beneficial to us now. We had no idea. But I think, we've early on, we started developing our own systems to support franchisees. And that turned out to be super critical because we were able to create a centralized online, or virtual programs where all of the franchisees could participate as a team. And then we can disperse the revenue, by zip code and by territory. And so that proved to be really valuable. But the other thing we did is we started to develop an app that our teachers could use that would house the curriculum on an app. So so a teacher could be in a class and actually pull up curriculum and, read it or look something up if they weren't sure of what to do or whatever. And we started to develop this app just because out of convenience. Normally they've got a printed binder, printed curriculum that they look at. But now that everything is virtual and we're not distributing, curriculum and kits physically to people, this app that we created is going to be, super huge to help while we're doing these programs online and doing summer camps. And so just the investment that we've made in some of those resources are just really paying off now. And I wouldn't have anticipated it. It was, kind of blind luck a little bit.
And Laura, Jessica, do you guys think this experience, I know one of the question was how much of revenue's been hit. And I think you've said honestly that they've been hit pretty hard or substantial, but do you think now by moving to digital, I know Snapology is an in-person experience and it'll remain that, but do you think now this has opened up avenues for better marketing or different marketing initiatives once everything lights back up?
Yeah, it's a question we get from our franchisees a lot. Are we going to be able to continue these online programs, sort of after the pandemic kind of clears itself, which, at this point is looking like it's going to be a bit before we're 100% in person for things. And so online isn't really who we are, but we've actually found some really cool applications to it. So we've been trying to work for years with hospitals and homebound children to try to figure out how we can do programs with them. And the problem with hospitals is because the children need a sterile environment. You can't have people coming in and out. They can't even always kind of use, some of the materials we have. They have to have their own and sterilized. But now with these online programs, now we'll be able to use those types of programs to reach children who are homebound or hospital bound, or even, maybe some populations that are in very rural areas that just can't get to some of the in-person programs. So I think there are going to be some applications of it going forward. I think you lose a little bit in the online experience, and there's a lot of value to the in-person, and I don't want to lose sight of that. But the online is pretty cool and is going to have some really nice, long-term, benefits.
And if I could actually add to that,
go for it.
Sorry, everything that Laura is saying right now is exactly why having a franchisee or franchisor like Laura is so important. I mean, Snapology, the reason why I purchased it was because I knew that it was the future. STEAM is the future. But the fact that you have a franchisor who's so creative and invested in not what's happening right now, but within the future, I think is absolutely incredible. And you could see it's paying off. Just that app that Laura was speaking about, the teaching app, where our curriculum will now be on the accessible, no matter where we are. Things like those instances really show the value behind working with a really great franchisor.
I was talking to a franchisor yesterday, and he was taking me through his journey of how this pandemic has impacted him. And he starts with, "Oh my God, my business is done." And that's where he starts. And now he's like, "Oh my God, our sales are skyrocketing." And he happens to be in first party delivery. But in the moment that it hit for a restaurant brand, it was a realization that my business, everything I worked hard for, be gone. It's a very honest moment, and you can see that. I think franchisors and franchisees are being super honest about what it's like to navigate this. And the reality is it's probably going to help address concerns of fear as the next wave of buyers come into brands, because now you know what fear actually looks like and how it's defined. So, Laura, I would love to start with you, and Jessica, if you have feedback as well. But what scares you most or has scared you most about this? And what do you see as the biggest opportunity for the business on the other side?
Yeah, it's interesting because the story I like to tell is the story about how we're doing great and our social media is, up and increased and we're going to, sort of be better off on the back end because of the things that we've put in place and we've increased, the followers and the engagement, and those types of things, even if there's no revenue associated with it. We've definitely, through the programs that we've done, our marketing team has done a great job of introducing programs and promoting those programs and getting more engagement for all of our franchisees. I love to tell that story, but what I like to keep sort of hidden is the fact that when this thing first started, about 70% of our franchisees came to us and said, look, this isn't going to work. They were panicked. I mean, it was the first couple of weeks of when schools were starting to close, and they basically just wanted to kind of crawl in a hole and die, and they expected somehow I was magically going to make everything okay, but they didn't want to do the online programs or anything that we were recommending. So the beginning of this, honestly, was very, very difficult for us. It was very challenging. And it was a fear response, and a very natural fear response. I mean, I don't fault, folks for thinking that way. As a business owner, the beginning of this was really scary. I had my moments of panic as well, as anybody did. But we had to very quickly sort of, counsel and, send out messaging, positive messaging, and show folks how we were going to be able to survive through this, and not only survive, but thrive. And we were able to successfully do that. But it was a pretty scary first couple weeks there. And I think our franchisees can probably look back and recognize that it was kind of a panic or a fear response. And once that sort of, subsides, and you start thinking a little bit more clearly, start thinking more rationally, they start thinking like entrepreneurs who make something out of nothing. Once we sort of got everybody over to that mindset through daily messaging and, positive feedback and those types of things, now we've got 95% of our franchisees in a very, sort of positive mindset and moving forward. And again, the revenue that our franchisees are getting is a lot lower than what they were getting before. There's, no lie to that, but the engagement and the community service that we're providing, and the general building on social media that we're doing right now is invaluable. There's no dollar sign associated with that. There's no revenue to that. But after the fact, our true hope and our belief is that is going to lead to much increased enrollment in the future for all of our owners. So it's sort of a short-term game and a long-term game, and it's that education and just understanding that short-term, the revenue might be a little bit lower, but we've all got a plan as entrepreneurs for the long game here.
And just to add on to that, I'm probably a little overly optimistic. I'm always eternally optimistic. So of course there was some fear in the beginning, especially when parents who are our biggest clients, parents in schools, start asking for refunds. They're scared, there's uncertainty, but all of those fears for me really just were circled around revenue. I personally had confidence in the system, in what we were doing. Laura and her team were dropping little breadcrumbs along the way saying, we're figuring things out here at headquarters, just stay positive, stay positive. We have an internal system where franchisees are able to communicate with one another and really offer the support that we needed during that initial time. So the fear for me quickly subsided, just based on the pace that Laura and her team was able to provide an option for alternative income. So those virtual birthday parties, the virtual classes, and then just being human and reaching out to schools and parents and saying, we're all feeling it. This is kind of what we can do. In lieu of canceling altogether, we've transitioned into a temporary virtual program. So having those resources really subsided some of the fear for myself, and I know a lot of the franchisees that I'm close with.
And for those that are listening, there was a question about what's the business. It's Snapology, and it's a Steam-based Lego play concept. And Laura, my team. What I find interesting about this is, right, there's a revenue hit for almost every business, but what you're referring to about social media and whatnot, I feel like the smart businesses have taken advantage of a communication opportunity that comes about once every 100 years, right? Where you could get that undivided attention and really drill down on and define what your team and system is all about. And I know even internally our team, like the over communication, but also goals and systems that maybe I wanted to implement over 2 years have now been implemented in 2 months, right? So I do think, to your point, I think there is good opportunity on the other side. I think the revenue hit is real and the impact is real. So like anyone who says it isn't is lying, right? But I don't know if we ever get to a moment like this where this type of communication and value proposition between a franchisor and franchisee could ever be demonstrated and live together. And the other thing that really sticks out to me is we know that on the other side, whenever it is, the value proposition for franchising changed. People that would never consider franchising or pure entrepreneurship are now going to look at the franchise model. And I think that the franchisor-franchisee relationship's changing. If you're an honest franchisor and you're building your systems and you're supporting your franchisees, Jessica's term really comes out the most to me, which is it really becomes a human relationship. And, no matter what the agreements say, and they're there for reasons or not, it's that human connection and relationship and leadership, which is great to see on this end, leadership at the franchisor and the franchisee level. And I don't even know if that's a question, but it's just an observation, what do you guys think about that?
If I could just add on to that, I worked for a software as a sales firm in Manhattan for 10 years, and I was one of the top sales performers, and I never once spoke to my CEO. Laura, we have her number, we have her email, she's there, she's answering my messages. Again, I like to think I'm self-sufficient, but when I need her, she's there and she's the one who responds if it's not something, if it's not someone on her team. And that, is everything.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of different franchise systems out there, and there's a lot of really good franchise systems out there. For me, I've been a franchisee of two other systems in the past, and, now sort of running my own franchise as the franchisor, I know what it's like to sit in a franchisee's shoes. And in fact, I have a corporate owned location. So I do this, my corporate owned location is experiencing the same things that every other location is experiencing. And so it's pretty easy for me to put myself in somebody else's shoes. And my team's been really great about providing, sort of those resources that you need, either in COVID times or non-COVID times. Whenever something arises, quickly, they're ready to go because they immediately recognize the need for us in our sort of local Pittsburgh operations, and then can quickly sort of figure it out and deploy it for the whole franchise system wide. So it is definitely, as people are looking at different franchises to buy, it's definitely something that I think is important to understand, is that franchisor-franchisee relationship. A lot of the franchisors in our space and in our, sort of competing industry here, they don't have that mentality. And you don't really understand that until you're faced with a situation like this. And so, I think a question that people should be asking in the future is, how did your franchisor respond to COVID-19? And I think that's very telling about it. And I'm proud to say that I feel like we've done everything we can. I'm sure we'll look back and say, oh, we should have done this or we should have done that. And, it's kind of human nature to always kind of look at that. But I can tell you that in the moment, I feel like we're doing the best we can. And I think franchisors should be expected to fill that role.
Yeah, it's a great point. I don't think there's going to be any faking it on the other side of this. There's brands that their value proposition was, we provide superior support, and that was the end of the statement. And now they've been really put to the test, and that story is going to stand long past this. As we go to final thoughts, Charles, any final thoughts that you want to share?
Yeah, what just keeps coming back is about good franchisors and good franchisees. You know, they attract each other. And again, I think Jessica's point about that human connection with the brand and with Laura, I think that tells everything.
Yeah, and I guess my only
Jessica, final thoughts?
Oh, good.
Yeah, I would have to say one of the most intangible benefits of working with a franchisor, you know, specifically with Snapology, going back to my initial opening statement, is the level of control that it gives you over your life in an uncertain time like this. Like this isn't real life, but this shows you that you can have some sort of control, and that there is a level of fulfillment and reliability, and you just have to find the correct franchisor to work with.
And Laura, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm thankful. You know, as horrible as this situation is, it's really given me a chance to really see, you know, my leadership team in action, and I'm so thankful for them and everything that they've done. And quite frankly, I'm so thankful for owners like Jessica and all the owners out there who have really embraced the programs and new programs, embraced all these changes, you know, in the midst of a very scary situation. And so for me, as horrible as this situation is, it's really given us a chance to really strengthen our system foundation a little bit more. And so I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, my final statement would be there's clearly no blueprint for how you navigate a storm like this. So for those of you watching, here's another example of a brand you can follow and see what they're doing to try to create some perspective on how you handle these things. It's another example of a franchisee sitting live on a conversation and saying the franchisor has stepped up just like they said they would, and they're proud to be a part of that brand. So we greatly appreciate the conversation today. Appreciate you guys giving us some time, and we wish you guys the best of luck as you continue to navigate this this horrible thing. But great opportunity on the other side. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.